On to the January 8th Planning Board meeting. I call it to order. First up is roll call. Jenya.
Present.
Charlie.
Present.
And David is online.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, he hears us, we hear him. And Dan Cobb, I'm present. Melinda is excused. And Vince, our council liaison, is unable to make it this evening. He's tending to some other council business. Okay, next up then is approval of minutes. So we've got the minutes from the December 11th meeting. Did anyone have any corrections to those?
No. No corrections.
Charlie, all good?
All good.
David?
No, good.
Okay, do we have a motion to accept the minutes as submitted?
I seconded.
Someone's gonna make the motion first.
I move approval of the minutes.
Now you can
I'll
second.
second.
Seconded.
All right, any discussion?
No.
All in favor? That's unanimous. Okay. All right, now you can stand up. So next up is new business public hearing. This is Egypt Road Sandbrook South Subdivision preliminary plan review. This is a request by Habitat for Humanity of Greater Portland, represented by Northeast Civil Solutions for Planning Board, preliminary plan review of a proposal to create a 7-lot major subdivision on the 23 plus or minus acre Rory Maloney property abutting the town of Raymond line on Egypt Road at tax map 11, lot 308-261-007 in the Lake Zoning District and Shoreland Zoning Stream Protection Zoning District. This proposal is subject to major subdivision review and shoreland zoning standards. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Jim Fisher. I work with Northeast Civil Solutions, and we are working with Habitat for Humanity, who's represented this evening here by Chad and Ryan. Travis Letelier is our engineer extraordinaire in the project for road design and the other technical aspects of this. And what I'd like to do is just kind of take us through more of the comments from the town than anything else, because we did cover a lot of this information at the sketch plan when we were here in the autumn. And then most of, or if not all of us, were actually on the site walk. So we've been to the site and we saw what that looked like physically. So although there's not necessarily any room for brevity, I suppose, given that we're the only ones on the agenda this evening, but I will keep it, or try to keep it reasonably short, and then just open it up to any questions or comments that you have. As Kristen did mention, there has been some information relative to the her comments and the reviewing engineer's comments that we received after submission, which is typical, that we did act on. So this is why I'd like to be able to go through some of these comments, just to show you or point out on the plans and in your information what we've actually done. Now, I know you haven't had, or you may not have had, a lot of time to be able to take a look at that, and that's okay. Essentially what we're looking at, since we have to come back again for a final approval anyway, what we'd like to be able to do this evening is obtain preliminary approval. One of the primary aspects of that is not only are we pretty far along with the project, but there is a contract stipulation for the purchase of the land, for Habitat's purchase of the land, that essentially runs out here within the next month. The board typically likes to be able to see some type, before they purchase a property, would like to be able to see some type of official indication that the project is moving forward. So they don't necessarily need final, but preliminary would be great toward that end. Obviously, it's up to the board, completely your choice, but that's what we're looking for this evening. And then toward that end, if you do have any questions or comments that will just lead us further toward that end, please feel free to interject at any time. Otherwise, I'll just kind of run through this and then open it up to questions or comments at the end. So what we have is as you've already mentioned, a 7-lot proposed subdivision off of Egypt Road. It's the extent of Egypt Road that is right on the town line of Gray and Raymond. And as we saw on the site walk, the actual entrance to that road, or the proposed road, is very close to the town line, but no part of the project is actually located in the town of Raymond. So as far as the municipality of Gray is concerned, everything is within the confines of this town. We're looking at 7 lots. We're looking at a road that's about 1,000 feet long total by the time it's done, including the connection to Egypt Road, and then a lot of open space. When we were here last time, we had an actual 2 additional lots, which does meet the criteria for that, but it just wasn't worth the effort to try to be able to put that in from a construction standpoint. Plus, by getting rid of those 2 lots, these were lots that are behind the existing out sale lot that you see on your plan, right around this area, right in here. So what we're looking at is to be able to create the property that essentially comes off of Egypt Road in this particular area and then comes down this way with all the 7 lots on the southerly side of that road. There are, I'm going to call attention to a few waivers that we'll get to here in just a moment, but one of those waivers, for instance, is for lighting. Typically on the end of a road, if it's in a more urban or suburban area, we do typically put traffic lights. There are no such lights, not traffic lights, street lights. There are no such lights on Egypt Road. And under the Maine's Dark Sky Initiative, well, it's certainly up to the town, we typically like to be able to keep it that way. I'd say off the cuff, if this were a 50-lot subdivision, it might be a little bit different, but at 7 lots, without any other street lighting that's in that area, we'd like to be able to keep it that way. That's one of the waivers, and again, we'll discuss that here in a little bit. Going to Kristen's notes on the development, I'm going to go to page 2, and there's one reference, the second paragraph references the traffic plan that we have that talks about the site distances for the location of the connection to Egypt Road. You'll probably remember from when we were here before regarding the 2-lot subdivision that's immediately across the street from this one. We had the site distances in place for those driveways and for this roadway. There is some clearing at the edge of the roadway through DPW that we needed on the 2 lots across the street, which are in effect. When you take a look at the actual traffic plan for the site distances, you'll see that the actual distances exceed the minimum limit of 430 linear feet. And from the point of site where our proposed road meets Egypt Road, we've got those site distances on either side without the necessity of any specific clearing. This is beyond where the clearing is going to happen for the road itself, of course. But as far as the site distances are concerned, that wraps that up, and it actually exceeds that. And I think the reviewing engineer indicates that the 430 feet is met anyway, so there should be no issue toward that end. Comments per town staff. There are all submittals having been made. Now I say all submittals because pursuant to this evening's meeting and a couple of other items that we are still working on as far as tweaking is concerned, we will have all that in the final submittal that you'll be able to take a look at, and then when we come back here for final approval. One of the issues that we talked about last time was we were thinking about a waiver for high-intensity soils, going for the medium-intensity soils. When we took a look at this, when we did the site walk, there was a comment from one of the members of the board that said, okay, well, this is an area that's got some undulation to it. There are some wetlands, there are some rocky areas, some of the nice high ground areas where most of the houses are going to go. And we really determined that because there's not a significant difference with a project of this size between a medium intensity and high intensity soil survey, we're just going to do the latter, which we did and which you have. So that's no longer a waiver, a request. You've got the high intensity soils, and it all works out great. As far as the septics and the plan that shows the well exclusion lines, this is the second paragraph under number 1. What I'd like to do is call attention to the next plan that you've got before you on the 11x17 and also on the screens above you. This shows the septic system, the test pit, and the septic locations with the exclusion zone around that, and then the potential locations for the wells. The septics, as you know, are based on soil science, and a licensed soil scientist went actually out there on our behalf and took a look at the test pits and found the passing test pits for each one of the sites, and these are the red zones around them that you see. Beyond that, we need to be able to show that the wells will be able to be drilled for each site. Those wells are not, the location, unlike the septic systems, for instance, the wells locations are not sacrosanct, as long as they don't fall within those red shaded areas. So we've got most of those toward the back of the lots beyond the septic exclusion areas that will feed each one of these proposed dwellings. And there's plenty of room, even though it's tight in some cases, but there's still a couple of different places for wells to be able to be drilled there. And obviously, we're going to make sure that before any of the lots are sold, that there are wells that you can make sure that they get fresh water. So as far as the wells and the septic, that's the plan that shows all of that information. For going on toward number 2, potential waiver requests, I'd like to come back to that for the waivers that we're requesting. So we'll jump ahead to number 3 as far as the driveways are concerned. Most of the ordinance that is referred to at paragraph number 3 refers to stormwater and construction standards for driveways, just like they are for streets. So we meaning anybody in a similar situation, has to follow those standards. We cannot create, unlike an individual lot, for instance, when we're coming before the board, we have to meet that criteria. So toward that end, one of the things that Travis does, the engineer, is to be able to show all the calculations for that. And you see many of those calculations that are actually on this plan. And then on the grading, the road profile plan, that's also included in your packet. There was a comment about the driveway number 1 perhaps being a little bit too close to the T intersection of our own road, of our own private road. We moved that. So that's not now as close to the road. It's easy to do. We just slid that over a little bit, so that's no issue. And then the placement of the hammerhead off the end of the driveway. We don't have to put it there. We can literally move it to the side. As far as that is concerned, because this is a private road and we've got snow storage that's at the end of both ends of the road, actually, the hammerhead is not susceptible for snow storage. As you well know, when you see plows and when you see the blades on plows, when they kick up snow, when they're plowing any road in any town, the snow goes off to the side of the road. When you get to the end of a given road that doesn't connect to another road, then there's a blade full of snow, as it were, that's in front of that plow. It's got to put it somewhere. In this particular case, it would go toward in the snow storage area that's labeled as such, that's right off the end of the road on both ends. So toward that end, there's really no snow storage that would go off of the hammerhead. Now, we don't have to put the driveway off the hammerhead, but if we don't and we put it to the side, that's just a lot of additional impervious surface that's going to be immediately adjacent to each other. And from an environmental standpoint, not just for habitat, but for any development in which we're involved, we try to keep the environmental impact to a minimum. So if we can get a driveway off at the end of that hammerhead, that would be great. That's probably a comment from DPW when the finals come in. If the Public Works doesn't want it that way, we don't have to put it there. There's plenty of room on the site to be able to run it parallel to that hammerhead. Again, it's just additional impervious surface area that doesn't necessarily have to be there. So we'll leave that up to the board and for questions or comments regarding that. Moving on to the open space. Because we were able to get rid of the 2 lots that were perpendicular behind the outsale lot, that opened up a huge amount of area proportionately of quote-unquote usable open space or uplands, that which is not directly impacted by any wetlands, or any streams directly, et cetera. So we now have considerably more open space overall and considerably more usable open space or upland than we were originally proposing. And all those calculations are actually on the plan, and they are on the subdivision plan as well under the subdivision notes. There are also indications on the subdivision plan that you'll see the chart that is right in the center of the plan, right below the graphic. That lists all individual lots with the impervious surface areas, the developed areas, et cetera, proposed per lot. And you can see that each one of these lots is quite sizable. It's an acre lot or a builder's acre lot as a minimum. And there's plenty of room for a single family residence as shown with the percentages of, again, the impervious surface areas for stormwater treatment, which includes the rooftops of the houses, the driveways, the sidewalks, and what have you, and then the overall percentage per lot of that coverage. That was one of the questions that they had last time, that you had last time, saying, okay, we see it on the notes, but it didn't actually translate per lot onto the plan, so now we've put it there in that chart. The board had a question about trails. So what we've done is we put a trail network. You can see, this is a very busy plan, by the way. There's a lot of information on this. But at the request of the town per the ordinance, we also included, which we didn't originally have, the topography on here. And the topography adds quite a lot of lines and shaded areas in here, but bear with me when you can see it. There's a trail that we've included right back in this area, which means that all of this area is actually accessible by the homeowners or the property owners who will actually live in this development. So what we've done as far as the trail is concerned, particularly to be able to take advantage of the upland area that's more towards Sucker Brook, is we've run a trail off of the end of the easterly end of the road, and then coming down between our lots, our final lot 7 and the outsale lot, run behind up that hill a little bit that we walked down when we were at the site walk, and then over in this area right over here for Sucker Brook, which is really cool. It's not flat, there's no flat areas out there, but there's not a whole lot of contour in that particular area, and that would allow somebody to be able to walk down there from their house, down their road, or off the back of their property, and then down toward the upland area towards Sucker Brook. So it really opens up all of that open space that essentially comes all the way from our access road, that's right off of Egypt Road, wraps around the front of Egypt Road, or between Egypt Road and the front of our development, cuts around that outsale lot, comes all the way back over to Sucker Brook, and then can actually run behind our lots as well. Now there is inland fisheries and wildlife land that's across the street and behind the development that we had talked about before and got for approvals. But the land that's immediately adjacent to us behind this property is actually owned by Central Maine Power. The IF&W, and there is IF&W land in gray as well, but it's not an immediate abutter to this particular development. Now, we hesitate to be able to show any connection to the Central Maine Power area. All of us pretty much know, if we've seen the Central Maine Power corridors or any power corridors, that there are often trails that just kind of appear there over the years. ATV, snowmobiling, hunters trails, what have you. Those are informal. They're not sanctioned. CMP is pretty cool about them, and they let them go there because their lines are quite far up in the air. But we cannot officially connect a trail to somebody else's private property. We can show the connection to there, but then it can't extend on to any other trail officially. If somebody wants to walk in this development, wants to walk into that area and connect to the informal trails in the Central Maine Power Corridor, more power to them. They can typically do that, but officially, again, we would not ask the town to approve that, and we wouldn't want to show that to another private entity anyway. So we've got this trail system that was required or requested, and we can tweak that a little bit. We can make it bigger, we can relocate it, but we did want to show you where it is. Now, keeping in mind the environmental considerations, trails are not like paved walkways through the woods. They're not even chipped walkways typically, because what we don't want to do for a natural trail system is to actually cut trees and affect the ground cover to be able to put a trail there. A trail is a woodland trail, so it would be marked, it would be identified, and it can be raked, but there should not be any excavation or tree cutting in that. We walk around the trees. So the trails are going to be as absolutely natural as possible, but they would be marked as such. Moving on to the floodplain, at the site walk there, and even before, I think, Mr. Chairman, you had a question about delineating both in the nomenclature on the plan and by color some of the differences between the floodplain and the wetland areas and then the soils areas. And on the sheet before you, you'll see that we've delineated the floodplain, which is that buffered colored, yellow colored area right on Sucker Brook. That's the only actual FEMA designated floodable plain. Then you've got the different nomenclature for the drained soils that are adjacent to that. And then the wetland plains that are more toward the southerly area of the proposed development. So those are all now differentiated separately, and they're a little bit easier to see than they were last time. I would call out attention to the fact that there is, when FEMA does its maps, any wetland areas are considered ostensibly floodable. If we get a hurricane and we're dumped on for days and days at a time, wetland areas are going to become saturated. So there is in the wetland nomenclature for on the plan that shows for FEMA, we've got the unnumbered A zone of Sucker Brook, which is what you see in yellow. And an unnumbered zone basically means that FEMA does not have any flood data on that particular area, which means as far as they're concerned, there is no flooding. But we know, and they know, that as a flowable brook, it's into which stormwater flows whenever it rains. It's got the potential for flooding, which is why they listed it as an A zone, which is possible for flooding, but again, they don't have any actual elevations that would trigger that. Doesn't matter, it's still a flood zone, and we've indicated it as such. On Sandy Brook, which is pretty much behind or to near the Central Main Power area to the south of us, that is indicated as an X zone, which is essentially not a flood zone, but because there are wetlands there, they do associate that with the potential for groundwater flooding in an extreme storm event or series of events that could result, before it drains naturally, it could result in up to 1 foot of standing water before it drains. And in this particular case, FEMA doesn't consider that actually floodable, but we want to show it anyway because they show it. So that's what that means when you take a look at the X zone. And as the notes in the subdivision plan indicate, when anybody goes to build a house out here, the lowest floor of the basement of of any given house has to be a minimum of 1 foot above that wetland area, or whatever wetland area might be adjacent to those properties. Now, if we remember from the site walk, the houses that are going to be on the up gradient from where the road is going to be, they're all well above the road. The houses, we saw a lot of that undulation with the hills. It's pretty cool, actually. These houses are going to be kind of high and looking over the woods and what have you. So from a flood hazard standpoint, there really is no danger to any of the placement of the houses for flood hazard anyway, but it's within the developable area. So that's why we showed that. As far as the streams are concerned, we did show the setbacks. We had indicated those before, but it was kind of a little difficult to be able to determine what they were from. In other words, the floodplain on Sucker Brook. So you'll see that the setbacks are now shown there. We also had, in the conjunction with the high-intensity soil survey, we showed a couple of stream segments that are through the middle of the development. When we were out there, these stream segments are that broader wetland area that we saw when we walked throughout this area. A stream segment basically is a wetland area within which you have a mineral-based channel. I'm not going to dwell on that, but essentially, instead of just a broad wetland plain that when it rains it gets wet, if there's topography, a lot of boulders, a lot of natural earth or what have you, that kind of creates an hourglass effect between wetlands. That hourglass effect, if there's a little bit of scouring there in those little stream channel segments, then that is considered to be a stream. But it's not a flowing stream. It just means that when we do have these extreme weather events and there's a lot of stormwater that's coming off the hills, et cetera, when it gets into the wetland flow in the watershed leading to Little Sebago will kind of hourglass a little bit. In these cases, there's one that's about 40 feet long, one about 50 feet long, one about 60 feet long. Nobody's going near there as far as building anyway. We can't do that, but notwithstanding the road crossing, which is allowed per the state. We show that the houses are well above that and that those stream segments also have the 75-foot setback, which is also noted both here in blue on the screen ahead of you or before you, and then back on the subdivision plan, it's also shown there. The reason we did that on the subdivision plan is to show any contractor, individual contractor for the houses that are eventually built, that they need to be, those are sacrosanct areas, and those will be indicated, marked, flagged in the field. so that when a contractor does go through there, they avoid that buffer, or that stormwater buffer, and they go around that, which they can do. That's where the driveways are gonna go anyway, so they're gonna end up creating the driveways that are free of that. As far as the actual roadway is concerned, number 7, wanted to show the right-of-way reserved to the adjacent property. We did that. You'll probably remember from the site walk that there's already kind of a woods road. That's where all that siding was sort of surreptitiously dumped in the back. It was not on our property, but there is a potential. That property is potentially large enough to be able to have a development at some point in the future. So this now shows a potential connection that could be allowed to this internal roadway if that property ever gets developed to the point where there's a like connection to Sandbrook Road. We also identify the ends of those roads as the snow storage. If there is a connection, obviously the plow goes straight on through, and depends on what's on the other side of that. But at the other end, at the easterly end, obviously there's a house with a property, the new house that was built out there. That's where we began the site walk. So that can't actually be expanded. The roadway cannot be connected to that. There's nothing to connect to. There's a question about mailboxes. The mailboxes, the intent is to have the mail posts on the end of the road with the numbers, the house numbers that will be coordinated with the town, with the Department of Public Safety, and then the post office for that as well. And then confirming that the turnaround is at least 50 feet from the terminus of the road. We've actually put the mathematical dimensions on the subdivision plan, so you'll be able to see that that is 50 feet, which is the standard distance between the turnout and the actual edge of the roadway itself. Coming into other notes and revisions on the face of the plan, financial and technical capacity, that's all set. On the face of the plan, we had listed resource protection. Kristen pointed out that somebody had pointed out that was probably a generic reference. It is. We've subsequently gotten rid of that, but it's resource protection in that nobody can go there. That is a sacrosanct area. We have no intention of going there. We're nowhere near it, actually. And then in the narrative, we talked about the lake zones, shoreline, and the stream protection zones. Those were shown graphically. They're still shown graphically on this plan, and then they're also now labeled actually in the boundary notes on the subdivision plan. It stipulates that it's not just Lake District, but shoreline zoning and the stream protection. Talking about developed, disturbed, and impervious surface areas, this is 8D. That's what the chart is that's in the middle of the subdivision plan for each individual lot. The topography was on a separate sheet. It's still on a separate sheet, but is also on the subdivision plan, has been requested. The setbacks have actually been labeled on each lot so that there can be no confusion for any members of the homeowners who are building these houses, that they cannot they cannot build in the area of those setbacks. And it's now very clearly not just shown, but stated on the actual subdivision plan, what those mean, those distances, et cetera. So there's always a setback buffer between lots. So those setbacks are labeled. And then there's the road note, which Kristen has pointed out. That is also the final note on in the subdivision section on the subdivision plan. That's essentially it as far as the comments from staff are concerned. I would like to go over the request for the waivers, which I'll run through really quickly, other than to say as well that from an engineering perspective, your third-party engineer with whom we've worked for 20 years, we found that our companies at basically the same time. We work with those. Travis actually works with their engineer directly to make sure that any of the questions that they have, some of which are the same as what Kristen pointed out, are dealt with specifically. Those are a lot more technical standards, and the engineers will work that out and then give you or give Kristen the engineer's comments toward that end, and ostensibly by the time we're back here for final approval, there won't be any issues toward that end. Sometimes they have recommendations. Sometimes we adhere to those recommendations. Sometimes we don't. Depends on what they are. But any of the requirements, obviously, we have to and will meet. As far as the waivers are concerned, we're looking at 3 specifically, or requesting 3 specifically. One, again, is the waiver for the stone monuments. The bottom line is we can do them, but they're not that great. Primarily because, and not just for this development, but for pretty much any development. If we're in a city street in Portland, for instance, they're much more viable, as it were, rather than a rural setting, primarily because those monuments delineate where the utilities can go and where the sidewalks are. Other than that, and in an urban setting, it's fine to be able to see them sticking up off the ground. In a more rural setting, there's several different reasons why we don't follow through with that, and it's your call to be sure. But as we talked about last time when we were doing the subdivision across the street, we can't do the perimeters of the overall developed area, or the overall lot that we're looking at, not just the developed area, because there's already monumentation there. And as we state again, as we stated last time as well, what a monument is actually, so call a monument what you will, whether it's a stone monument or a capped rebar or an iron pipe or whatever. It could be a drill hole, it could be a stone wall, whatever it might be. They're all referred to as monuments. When they're set, they are referred to legally in deed descriptions and on plans. And these were already set along for the corners of the lot for the perambulation line between the town line between Raymond and Gray, and for central main power across the back. We can't go in there and replace those monuments, because if you do so, you've got a deed that says, for whatever property, that says, okay, go, this is the bearing in the distance to the particular capped rebar, and somebody's out there looking for that, and there's no capped rebar, and they find a stone bound. Well, okay, a bound is a bound to a certain extent, but we've illegally removed one monument to replace it with another, not at the behest of the people that actually set that monument. So it's essentially, we're not supposed to do that legally, we as surveyors. And this overall property has already been monumented all the way around. We found that information out there. The other thing as far as the monuments are concerned is you can't really find them very easily. Gray's regulation stipulates that they should be set at grade, which makes sense if you're going to set a stone bound, if you're in a sidewalk area in the middle of Portland, but not so much if you're in a wooded area. What we look for, and one of the reasons why we do capped rebar, we meaning surveyors do capped rebars, is that we can find them pretty simply. First of all, they stick above grade fairly substantially, anywhere from 6 inches to a foot or so. They're longer than the stone bound, so they can be driven into the ground, and if there's a rock involved, if there's ledge involved, we can actually drill into that ledge. If we're setting a stone bound, you can't, the area for a stone bound is about 4 times the size of the actual bound itself. Because once that bound goes in a hole, it's not coming back out of there without a backhoe. It's pretty heavy. So it has to be manipulated in that hole. Whereas a capped rebar monument can actually be set in the ground and hammered into it. And if we do encounter a rock, we've got rock drills, or like hammer drills, and we just hammer into the a hole about that big into the actual stone and set them, and they're much more convenient that way. Plus, they can be located not only visually much better, but they are susceptible to magnetic resonance, metal detectors, basically. So if there's snow on the ground, or if there's a lot of autumnal leaves or what have you, we can find them a lot easier, we meaning anybody who's looking for them, as opposed to the stone bounds. The other thing, quite literally, is the granite bounds are fairly expensive, and they're a lot more expensive to actually put in the ground. There's a lot of work involved with the backhoes to be able to get them that way. And from an environmental standpoint, which is one of the bigger considerations, rather than disturbing a substantially greater area to be able to put in a stone bound where a capped rebar will do, we prefer to have lesser environmental impact. It's completely up to you. We'll do whatever you wish. But because the capped rebars at all the lot corners and along the roadway will delineate where the corners of any particular lots may be and the points of curvature of the road, we would request that we be able to certainly monument all those points, but with capped rebar as opposed to the stone bounds. For another waiver request is for a phosphorus management plan. This isn't really a waiver, but because we are doing in conjunction with the stormwater management plan, we're following the DEP's criteria for the general criteria for stormwater management, which includes attenuation of stormwater for prevention of erosion, which is essentially what the phosphorus is. Phosphorus is basically a chemical, a naturally occurring chemical compound in the organic layer, the top duff layer of any ground around anywhere. And that's just occurs naturally. And when you disturb that, then that can tend to get in a somewhat higher concentration into wetlands and stream areas. Well, actually, going into wetland areas is actually not a bad thing because it promotes wetland growth in there, which is kind of cool. That's what you want. And the phosphorus, like nitrates, also dissipates faster in a wetland area. What you don't want is to actually have it in a substantial stream area where the stream will directly dump into, for instance, a watershed most at risk or a great pond most at risk. In this case, as your reviewing engineer has already noted as well, and as we had indicated, about a third of a mile away is Little Sebago, and the stream, we're not going anywhere near Sucker Brook, which is the only brook that's actually got flowing in water in it, notwithstanding a drought, but it's got substantial flowing water in most of the year. Most of the rest of this area is just a wetland area. The point being is that we're allowed to do one or the other, and we've chosen to follow the general standards as opposed to the phosphorus control. But to be able to just formalize it, we've requested a waiver, even though it's not really a waiver, but I'm happy to address those comments and questions later on if you have that. And then the final waiver request is what we started to talk about initially here this evening, is regarding the lighting. Also, as far as environmental impact in terms of lighting is concerned, in rural areas, we want to be able to try to keep the dark sky effect. A couple of decades ago, Maine bought into this, as most states have, particularly those in the western part of the country, where they are promoting the dark sky effect, which means you don't have street lights for no particular reason that are on all night, that aren't really required in a particular area. I would point out too that Westwood Road, that's on the other side of Sucker Brook, that's a road that serves well over 100 properties down around the lake, et cetera. That does not have any lighting. There's actually no lighting, street lighting in this area of Egypt Road, either direction, either into Raymond or into Gray. So what we'd like to do is have a waiver for any requirement for overhead street lighting at that intersection and at the very end of the road. There's only 7 houses here, and it's not a through street. So it's not like there's a lot of people that are going to be driving in here who don't live there, unless there's a party or something to that effect. But in any cases, the houses will, be ostensibly lighted like our own houses are lighted, and we just don't see the need, comparing to Dark Sky Initiative, to be able to put those lights there. And that's it. So I'd be happy to answer. Thank you for letting me just ramble a little bit, but I'd be happy to address any questions or comments that you may have.
Okay, thanks. It's good, you've made a lot of progress, right, with your responsiveness to the planner's memo, so that's good. The challenging piece also is that it's new information, so I'm not sure where we're gonna get with waivers and things like that, because people may not have had adequate time to review some of it.
And that's fine.
So just to let you know. So, and just to clarify, with the engineer's memo, you're accepting of everything in it and/or going to work directly with them, right?
Yes.
That's what I thought I heard. I just want to.
Yes. There are a couple of recommendations that they've made that we agree with.
Okay.
That didn't require any specific changes in there. A couple of other
Yep.
requirements that they would like to be seen done. And the answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
Engineer will speak with engineer and take care of everything there.
All right. So I think what I'll do then, I made a few notes throughout. I think. Does anyone have any initial questions? I mean, I think it was pretty thorough, so.
No.
David?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. All right, perfect. So I think what I'm going to do next, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open it to the public. And I see 0 people online, and I think 0 people in the room. So it's opened and now closed, but it was done. I had just a couple things on the, I think what we'll end up doing, I mean, you're coming back, right? So
Yes.
the furthest you're going to get is preliminary. That will give Kristen a chance to re-review your plan and rewrite a new memo with a lot less stuff in it. So that will happen. I had a couple things, and I'll see what else the board has specific to town staff comments. So no outstanding submittals. The Hammerhead, so that one, Kristen, you'll have, if they haven't already, Public Works comment on it.
Yeah,
And I
the
think we know what they're going to say.
driveway up at Hammerhead has been a significant issue in this town. The Public Works historically had policy-wise has said no.
That's fine.
And-
Even if they are private roads, they are typically almost all private roads. And the answer is no. We've actually had some, had to do like special agreements and
Yeah.
some trading and things like that for people who really wanted to do that in situations where it could work. But Public Works does not normally okay that.
And
At all.
I'll ask the rest of the board, but I would support their assessment of that, and also I think it could create other problems with the driveway and people starting to potentially park on the road and act like it's their own, property to park their RV or whatever. I'm personally not a fan. I'd rather see you not have it off the driveway, not have the driveway off the Hammerhead. Anybody, while we're on this topic? Charlie, any comment one way or the other?
No.
Jenya?
Nope.
David?
Yeah, like you were saying, I've seen that before with the Hammerhead being used for other people's parking. Yeah, it's not a good idea.
Okay, so
So that's
you've got
fine. It's
you're at a
easy to move.
2-2, and Melinda will be here next time, and
Sure. We weren't
My
asking to waive
recommendation
that. We
is
were
to
just
move it.
more for feedback, so
Yeah.
we'll just move it. That's easy
Yeah.
enough.
So the open space, the open space and my request on the coloring, I'm less interested in needing that now that you have all that extra open space. My interest before was along the lines of mostly utilizing undevelopable land towards your open space, and I wanted to really see the difference of wetland, what was usable and not. But with your upland area, I'm less interested in needing to see that now, and I think you have a lot of good open space in that area, so that was a good improvement. Trail, I think where we'll end up is where we've ended with other projects, which is sort of delineating it and marking it to the satisfaction of staff. So that would be like a kind of follow-up where the board will give you the general approval, and then the specific, we're not going to specifically prescribe details of how and where, but we leave that to a one-on-one with staff.
Sure.
So that was all I had specific, and I'm skipping over waivers, by the way. We'll cover that separately. So specific to the staff comments, that's all I had. Did you have anything, Charlie, specific to staff comments that you wanted to cover, that you agreed or
Only I'm
disagreed
just
with?
having a hard time seeing, where is the right-of-way on point 7, the right-of-way reserved for adjacent property?
So that's this one right here.
Okay.
That little square.
Got it. Thank you. That was all I was trying to find out here.
Anything else?
No, I've,
Okay.
that is very thorough.
Okay. Jenya?
No, waivers will be
Uh,
next meeting.
Well, maybe. I'm going to cover waivers separately once we get through the staff. I just want to make sure we're all aligned on the staff comments.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I'm good with it.
Can I
Um,
ask you a couple points of
sure.
clarification?
Yeah.
Just to make sure I know what direction you guys want to go.
Yep.
The usable open space, I know you said you were good with. The common park area is not necessarily delineated on this plan. And I didn't know if you had a preference for where, if you're good with like the part between the road and their road, because that's the part that has road frontage, or if you're
So-
looking for it to be elsewhere.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That was on my mind when we get to preliminary approval, like, because Melinda's not here, she'll have some input, you know. Not that we can wait necessarily, but she would have input, I'm sure. I'm just thinking about how much, what level of change is appropriate after a potential preliminary approval to final. I guess that's a very unclear question I'm asking you.
I think the
I
catch
guess what I'm
was-
saying is, do we need to determine that answer tonight?
Ideally, if they're looking for preliminary tonight or at the next meeting, it'd be nice to have board guidance on where you
Okay.
want them to put it. But if you're comfortable with what they're showing now, I don't know if that's the minimum of that 80,000, that part between the two roads. But if that meets it, if that would work for you as a board, or if you want to see it somewhere else, because it needs road frontage.
Right.
And right now, that's the only area showing road frontage, so that would be a substantial change to the plan if
Yep.
the board is not comfortable with the way it is now. So that's the only piece I just wanted to make sure I'm clear on what.
So does everyone
Yeah.
understand what Kristen is getting at with the common park area, as it's called in the ordinance?
Yeah.
It basically needs to be near the lots and have road frontage.
Right.
So that limits it to being in that area between, the parallel between the road and the Sandbrook Lane and Egypt Road.
Right.
I
Unless
mean,
you're comfortable
think
with,
it's-
all of this touches road between the two roads, and it all wraps around the back of the lots as well. So if you're
So
comfortable with
I'm
it as
fine
is.
with it as long as it's good. The park space needs to be good usable space. I see some questionable low areas in there. I think it's hard to tell.
There are, some lower areas, to be sure. We walked through those when we were on the site walk.
Yeah, I think it's probably best if it was marked as the common part, right? I mean, it's only marked right now as open space. And I think typically the sort of common park area is more specifically delineated on the plan.
So you want to just kind of have us seal it off, as it were, and just and identify,
I would just
You-
I don't think it needs to be sealed off, but identified as meeting that piece of the ordinance.
Yeah, we can go
Okay.
through those details. If you're comfortable with where it's placed, then I have that input from you, and we can
Yeah.
work on how to label it.
okay. Easy.
Yeah, it should be. It's a labeling and just so
Yeah.
it's clear that it's there.
Okay, so you're
So-
good.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions from the board? David,
No?
Virginia, Charlie? Okay, yeah, so we're good with that.
Okay,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
that question. I didn't yet get to David, so I wanted to make sure I asked him anything specific to the planner's comments that you wanted to cover.
No, I think we got all that covered.
Okay, great. All right. Did you have other?
One other question,
Yeah,
if I could.
sure.
The mailbox clustering that Jim did say they were thinking of putting it toward the beginning of the road. Did you want to see a pull-off area, or are you good with the way it's set up? I know in some other subdivisions we've done, because people you kind of expect to pull off to check their mail before they go to their house, and it can create a hazard if they're stopping
Yep.
just right in the middle of the road. So if that's something you wanted to see, I just want to make sure we're clear on that for the applicant as well.
So I think we did that. The last one was the Maple Lane or whatever.
Yeah, the
Right.
SC development, yep, Maple Leaf subdivision, yep.
I think I would want to see that. I mean, mailboxes are one of those things people tend to pull up on the wrong side of the road so they can, right?
That
So
too.
they can access it. And
There is a provision of the ordinance that allow, basically the either or. You can do a cluster,
yep.
or you can actually have them for each individual property. And we were just opting for the latter. Again, if you've got a pullout, I mean, we can, again, if you want it, we can do it that way, but that's the pullout. And you're right, to prevent somebody from stopping in the middle of the road to be able to get out of their car, to be able to open up their little box. to be able to create a pullout is just an environmental consideration. It's easy enough to do if you want, but.
Oh, sorry. So I misread the memo when it said if mailboxes are to be clustered. You're saying you're not.
That's
planning.
correct.
Okay, I thought they were going to be clustered. So you're saying you're doing individual
Yes.
mailboxes?
Yep.
Okay.
Like at their homes?
Not on the homes, it'd be at the, I think the requirement is they have to be a minimum of 4 feet off of the edge of the pavement of the road by the driveway, basically, for each individual home. So it'd be,
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
it'd be
so
the post.
7 mailboxes at 7 driveways, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I
so
misunderstood
that's-
that, because I
yeah,
thought he
And
said.
that's where the addresses for the homes
We
would
were
be there.
thinking clustered at the
Okay,
front.
so not an issue.
Yep,
Great.
okay. All right, good. We're good there. All right. So, any discussion points? They've got the submittals done. The Hammerhead, we gave feedback on. Open space, common area, we gave feedback on. Does anybody have anything related to the trail or other pieces of the open space? Or are we happy with it?
I think we,
The trail goes between
Wait,
two
one at a
houses.
time. Go ahead, David.
Yep, the trail goes between two houses. Is that what I saw?
no.
Yeah, effectively.
It goes beyond the last house of this subdivision and adjacent to a separate property. But it's on the property of this subdivision.
Okay. So I thought it was going between two subdivision, or two houses, two lots. And I was just wondering if it was close to one and not the other, or is it gonna bother those people, having people walk between their houses?
So I'm not even sure that lot is not built.
It is.
It is.
It is, okay,
Yep.
sorry.
I actually have the layout, if you want it.
No, that was a good, we like to be respectful of.
The house is close to the road. This is their septic plan, so it's just a rough
Yeah,
rough
but
sketch, but you can get an idea.
200.
At the sidewalk as well,
okay,
it's
so-
it's up closer
All
to the
right, so
road.
just so I know, so this house you're saying is this lot
The outsale lot, yep,
now or formerly LJM Properties?
correct. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that digitally to show to David, but
Okay,
it is
so
kind of
David, to
upright.
describe that to you, the house on that lot is pushed to the northeast corner, more or less. So the house is on the opposite side of the lot from the trail and kind of pushed up ahead of Sandbrook Lane towards Egypt Road. So it probably doesn't
So if
seem
you
like-
guys are comfortable with it, I would be too.
I think it seems like it's fine to me. It looks like it's a pretty good
I don't see any
separation.
problems there.
Yeah, okay. Yep, okay, we're good with that. All right, so waivers. So we typically don't accept new materials like at the meeting and day of. Kind of our standard is like a 72-hour preview time. So 2 of these I think are pretty simple. The phosphorus, well, they all might be simple, but I didn't, I guess for me personally, I'll see what the board thinks. We could either just wait on the waivers so everyone has time to read through it. I'm not sure on the phosphorus one, just because I didn't have enough time to read it. I was reading it on my phone just before the meeting. So I'd probably
The
be
town
a no
council,
if you want to do it
Yeah.
tonight.
I would like, well,
And it also, just to finish, I also wanted staff input on that one.
I mean, as described in the memo, and as Jim was saying, it's not, doesn't necessarily need to be a technical waiver.
Yeah.
I think the phosphorus standards don't necessarily apply to this project,
Does he need a
but
waiver
it's
for it?
up to the board if you want to view them as applying and require it. It was a little looser. a waiver would kind of formalize it, I think, is why they formalized the request. But it was, it's more of whether or not you feel it applies to the project. Try to find the actual notes on that.
Okay. Would the board prefer to get through waivers tonight or do it next time?
We can discuss at least. Waivers.
Discuss but not vote? Or do you want to do it?
One of the things I may mention is.
I'd rather not.
1 second. Go ahead, David.
I'd rather not vote on them tonight.
Okay.
I'm not big on waivers. I think that if they're gonna do a waiver, it should be in the ordinance somehow to allow us to make a decision one way or the other. But I don't like to do waivers. If the ordinance says it's gotta be done like that, then there's a reason why it's in the ordinance.
Mhm.
And if it's not, if it shouldn't be in the ordinance, we should take it out of the ordinance or give us another option.
It is technically an option in the purview. We can review the language if you'd like. The 40173D is what speaks to it. It's not one of the
Yeah.
required studies, I believe. It's an option.
Charlie, would you like to wait or?
What is the impact of waiting in terms of the timing of?
I think what I would propose we get through,
Project.
deeming it complete, and we vote on preliminary approval, and then at the next meeting, we would vote on waivers and final. So really, there's no impact to them, other than if they don't get a waiver, then they might need to make a change. That would be the impact.
But it doesn't impact our ability to give preliminary approval.
No,
No.
not at all.
Great.
So it puts
Then
them
I'm
at,
comfortable waiting then.
yeah, I'd prefer to, go ahead.
I don't know if you want to just review the language.
Well, it's not
Just-
specific to
Just
that.
so there's clarity on what your decision is, because a phosphorus management plan can apply to a subdivision in the direct watershed of a great pond with 5 or more lots that creates 800 or more linear feet of street or driveway. So there is an option, like Jim was saying, to either do a phosphorus impact analysis and control plan using the DEP procedures, or to do a long-term maintenance plan for all phosphorus control measures. And he is saying that they were going to do the DEP plan, I believe.
Yeah.
The DEP best practices.
So on that one, Kristen, I would prefer that you have an
So-
opportunity to review it and document it in the memo.
We can go through that.
For us, and then
Okay.
I haven't had enough time to, I get it, you're probably right, but I'd rather have the planner go through it. You know, we're talking about phosphorus and water quality health, and I want to make sure we're thorough about it.
Okay.
Sure, I understand. I would also call attention to the stormwater management, not this evening,
Mhm.
but you've got the stormwater management plan that's part of the packet.
Right?
That deals with that.
Right.
The phosphorus management plan is essentially how do you treat the stormwater.
Yeah.
So it almost doesn't, well, not almost, it doesn't matter in the long run because it's all going to be done. It just depends on which regulation you're actually following toward that end. But the end result is the same. And toward this end, because the general resource basically takes care of that and more than the
Right.
phosphorus plan, it's a
Yep.
better idea to be able to do that. If this were a 50-lot subdivision, we wouldn't be calling this out. But again, this is, as Kristen mentioned, this isn't really a waiver of sorts. It's just more a technical clarification for the board, because we are doing the general management plan that we have to do.
Okay, that's fine. Like I said, I just want the board to have time
Sure.
to digest it, and Kristen, so. We will address waivers at the next meeting when you come back.
Okay?
All right, so, next up then would be a finding of completeness or not. Would anyone like to make that motion, which is provided kindly for us by Kristen in the memo?
Just read it through.
So yeah,
Right,
basically, yeah,
okay,
sorry.
moved it.
Kristen's Melinda, sorry, is
Yes.
usually the go-to, but, so typically what we do is, someone will read it in the memo. We try and not do revisions on the fly. We usually,
Great.
with this one, we won't have to. Sometimes with the preliminary and final, there's some placeholders, but this one, you can basically just read it as it's presented.
All right, I move to find the application by Habitat for Humanity of Greater Portland complete per 401.7.1E. This proposal is for Planning Board preliminary plan review of a proposal to create a 7-lot major subdivision on a 23 plus minus acre Rory Maloney property abutting the town of Raymond Line on Egypt Road at tax map 11, lot 308-261-007 in the Lake Zoning District and Shoreland Zoning Stream Protection Zoning District. This proposal is subject to major subdivision review and shoreland zoning standards.
Is there a second?
Second, good.
Any discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? That's,
Aye.
I didn't see David's hand. Did I see a hand? Yep, okay.
Yep.
You're teeny on the screen, so I have to keep putting my glasses on and taking them off. Okay, so that was unanimous. So next up then would be preliminary plan approval. And we also have a memo provided here. And so we have a couple new members, so providing some historical ways of working as well. So for whoever makes this one, you don't need to read a page and a half of text. What we typically do is read sometimes you read the preamble part and then just say, would read subject to the following conditions 1 through 6 as presented in the January 7th January 8th planners memo. And then we can vote on it and then Kristen will just take the text and cut and paste it in her minutes.
Move to
You gonna go
approve
for
the
it? Right on.
preliminary plan application by Habitat for Humanity of Greater Portland for proposal to create a 7-lot major subdivision on the 23 plus minus acre Rory Maloney property abutting the town of Raymond Line on Egypt Road at tax map 11, lot 308-261-007 in the Lake Zoning District and Shoreland Zoning Stream Protection Zoning District. This proposal is subject to major subdivision review and shoreland zoning standards and subject to conditions 1 through 6 as listed in the January 8th planners memo.
Is there a second?
I second.
All right, any discussion? No discussion on that, all in favor? And that's also unanimous. Okay, so you're complete, you're preliminary approved. We'll do waivers next time and any additional staff or engineering comments next time.
Great,
Looks like you're close.
nice. Thank you very much
All
for your
right,
time.
thank you.
Appreciate that this evening.
Okay, thanks. So, a couple things, don't jump to adjourn, please. Where's my, there it is. So one, I don't remember if I did it, so I will mention that Melinda was excused tonight.
Yes.
I think I forgot to mention that.
You mentioned.
I did, okay.
Yes.
Oh, good, you got a good memory. And then secondly, I inadvertently skipped over information exchange, and I think Kristen had a couple things.
Yeah, just keeping you guys updated. There was a council workshop on LD 1829, the new housing density law came out from the state. So we were educating the council on that and the pieces that we're going to have to do. We have some ordinance updates drafted, both subdivision and zoning, that will be coming up soon, because that all needs to be in place prior to July. So that is on its way. The feedback from the council at that time was that they are interested in potentially pursuing a growth ordinance for the areas of town where that would be allowed, which is outside of Village Center and Village Center proper. The rest of the town would be eligible for that sort of thing. So,
Sorry, say that again?
a growth management ordinance.
Okay.
Or like only X amount of building permits are allowed per year,
Yeah,
sort of
okay.
thing.
I
So,
thought when you described it as a growth ordinance, I was thinking the opposite. So,
oh.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, it's more of a cap.
Yeah.
And there's a state law that puts restrictions on how that's managed
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
So that'll be a whole process, but that was brought up during that workshop. We did have a staff review committee meeting on December 18 with a follow-up on January 5 to approve a lot split at 152 Portland Road, which is the current riser heat pumps, Matthew Kopp property. That was approved with some input from Melinda, Tammy, and I. and we'll be signing that soon and get that out. So that'll be just splitting off the lot on the other side of the existing business and adding a duplex.
Okay.
That had been before you a while back and was not permitted at the time, but will be, will not be an issue with a new law. So that went through fairly smoothly. And the only other piece is that the Weston Woods subdivision plan will be coming to be signed. That's going to need to be signed by end of month. And the applicant doesn't have all of the changes updated yet, so I don't have those for you tonight. That would be you two and Melinda, because that was not here previously. But I will need to connect with you on that, just as a heads up on popping in to get that signed, because he's due February 3rd to get that in with the registry of deeds. So we're pushing up on deadline. So
Okay.
just as a heads up, hopefully, I don't know if anybody's planning to skip town for the rest of January or not, but I was looking to check in on that. So, no. Okay, so we'll touch base on that. But yeah, that was it from staff.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any information to exchange? I've just got one thing, and I didn't bother asking you to update the agenda because I knew Melinda wouldn't be here, but we need to do our elections, which are typically January. So we
Okay.
should do that in February, but I wanted everyone to be here. So that's for chair and vice chair.
Okay.
That's an annual thing, so.
Okay.
It's nice if everyone's here, so we'll try for it next month.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have.
I won't be there. I won't
Oh.
be there again. Next month I'll be remote again.
Oh, okay. How did that work out, by the way? Being remote?
Good.
Okay, good.
I hear you guys loud and clear.
Nice. All right. Sounds good. So is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? It's at least 3, 4. Okay, unanimous. All right. Thank you, guys. See you next